All right, thank you for joining us on this quick Facebook update on what is going on with Hurricane Delta. Again, the good news at 6 o'clock, storm made landfall with winds of 100 miles an hour. More good news, the 7 o'clock advisory, winds are now down to 90 miles an hour. Now the forward speed has been at about 14 miles an hour, really going back to, let's see, 1 o'clock this afternoon. So it has had a fairly decent forward speed since this afternoon. Would like to see it maybe a little bit faster, and I think as we get to a little bit more of the influence from that upper trough, it will be moving a bit faster northward and northeast. So it will be moving at least in a direction that will be taking it away from us as we get into early tomorrow morning. We'll show you the computer model where I think by wake-up time tomorrow we're going to be completely done with the rain. Still some very heavy rainfall, and I don't want to downplay that, and very strong damaging winds of 90 miles an hour. And notice winds have still been gusting up to 125. Now you're only going to really find that in the what is left of the northern eyewall that is now almost due north of Lake Charles. So the good news is for folks in Lake Charles, the worst is just about over. However, that is moving up toward the Opelousas area and all the communities between Lake Charles and moving in the direction of DeRidder. And obviously once that gets up toward the Alexandria area, it will be a far weaker system by that point. But also notice the southern end of the eye is really just seen all of the rainfall completely eroded away. The storm began weakening because of the introduction of drier air from an upper trough, but also remember the northern Gulf had that cool water with only 70-degree temperatures. So that really helped to initiate that weakening of the storm. So that was certainly some good news as it did make landfall. So at least it didn't make landfall. Only 12 miles away from Laura did about 6 weeks ago, but not as a major hurricane. So again, that was the good news with the storm. I was trying to find that little piece of information that we can give a positive spin to the storm. Some very intense rain. You see those red colors kind of coming in almost right in between Lafayette and Lake Charles of some very, very heavy rain. Flooding issues with those folks, or for those folks, as those cells continue to move northward. Now for us, as I mentioned, we're going to be watching these bands that are moving through, and the models indicate these bands will kind of pass on through. They wind down. They're not a complete filled in line, so it's not as though a constant rainfall. We will see breaks in those. One band moves on through, weakens, might see another one. Although as we go through the night tonight and even into early tomorrow morning, they will be passing through. The main risk from those, tornadoes, and maybe quick little spin-up tornadoes. No, so far, so good, and we are not under a tornado watch at this time. That could change as we start to see more of these bands setting up, and again, just the nature of the storm with the rotation, the broad rotation of a tropical system. These bands, as they rotate around, can easily and usually quickly spin up. Sometimes you don't get a whole lot of lead time, and that will be something we watch for the rest of this night, rest of tonight and into early tomorrow. Rainfall from Hammond toward Baton Rouge. Again, pockets of some heavy rainfall, and it's not just a constant rain, although we are starting to see almost a little bit of a training of some of this rainfall. However, it has not been intense rain that is training. You get some light little showers to move across the metro area, and more to come as we continue through the evening. Hopefully we don't see any of those become tornadic, but that is certainly a risk. Accumulation, we are not too worried about that. In some localized areas, yes, we saw that happen last night. These totals that you see north of Baton Rouge were really from what happened late last night, early this morning. Had some very heavy downpours over that area. And then you find a few pockets here and there. We actually had some in Tangipahoa Hope Parish, northern St. Tammany and Washington had 2 and 3 inches of rainfall. And some of the highest totals we could find on the radar estimates, almost 10 inches of rain around Lake Charles. But as I mentioned, the heaviest of the rain is moving north of Lake Charles. So that may be about all they see. For a landfalling Category 2 storm that had at one point been a 3, 5 to 10 inches of rain is really not that bad. Now, again, that does cause some flooding issues, but it could have been much worse. These systems can always be much worse. So again, I'm just ever the optimist on these systems. The rain totals that we saw here so far have not been all that impressive. About a quarter of an inch of rain at Kenner, a little more than a half inch of rainfall at Hammond. Now, obviously, we'll add to those as the bands move on through, but we are not talking about inches of rain across a widespread area. A 2 of 5 risk, a slight risk for severe weather, mainly from those little quick spin-up tornadoes, and that'll be something we watch closely all night and into early tomorrow. Winds are still very strong, and even sustained winds of 30+ miles an hour can still do some minor damage, including tree limbs coming down, and you get a tree limb on a power line, and you start getting some more issues. Hopefully it doesn't become too much of a widespread concern, but certainly power outages from the wind. And of course, we've been showing you all the reports along the coastline of coastal flooding, which so far has not been terrible. Again, areas outside of the hurricane risk reduction system are always going to flood anytime we get a strong east or southeasterly wind. What really helped us out was that drier air being fed into the western and then southern side of the storm. And that southern side of the storm, we saw all of the rainfall just get completely eroded away. So right now, overcast. It definitely wasn't a pleasant day with temperatures in the 80s and dew points in the 70s, but at least improving conditions are on the way. Quick check of the 7-day forecast will show us that we do have more sunshine, as a matter of fact, mainly in the afternoon and evening hours of Saturday, maybe even by the mid-morning hours before noon, and then warm but dry, although on the more humid side as we head into the early part of next week. A weak cold front is on the way for Wednesday with some drier air coming in. It may not affect our temperatures a great deal, but then a stronger front looks to be on the way for Friday. So again, improving news for Delta. It is inland. It's been inland for the last hour. Winds are coming down to 90, and it will continue to weaken as we go through the rest of the night. But something that we will be watching very closely here is the risk of any of those storms that roll through within the bands of becoming tornadic. So far, so good, but that's something we'll be watching for, and we will cut into programming if necessary if any warnings are issued. So for now, we'll wrap things up here and see you back on Eyewitness News coming up tonight at 10.